The motion before us is the IITians make poor leaders. And to propose the motion is Pritish Mukherjee, who was in Kharagpur, passed out in 1984, and he went back to his alma mater. He is now a professor at Kharagpur itself, with a very wide range of experience in software industry. Pritish Mukherjee, may I please ask you to propose the motion? The motion is IITians make poor leaders. You have 5 minutes. I will remind you that you're running out of time at 4 minutes.
Thank you, Rudrangshu, and good afternoon to all of you. Almost everybody in the audience is an IITian. So when I was told that I'll have to tell all of you that you are very poor leaders, it felt rather awkward. You know, it's like, I suppose, difficult to say things on your face, especially unpleasant things. But then I thought that, well, when a hangman puts a noose around a condemned man's neck, what does he say? He says, look, no hard feelings, this is my job, I have to do it, and as a professional, I have to put this noose around your neck. Now, I started thinking from that perspective, that I have to do a job, so let me do it well. And as I started working on it, I realized that sometimes the man you want to hang is perhaps Ajmal Kasab. So it's not just a job, you really want to hang him, okay? So then I realized that what I'm going to tell you is something, it's not just a job, it's something I'm convinced about. IITians make poor leaders. There are 2 or 3 words out here. Let's look at each one of them. What is a leader? I don't have the luxury of a lot of time, so I will define a leader as having 2 characteristics: having a vision, a long-term vision, a broad vision, and being able to convince a lot of people to carry this through along, okay? To believe him and take it forward. These are 2 aspects of leadership. I'm sure there are more, but let's start off with these 2 aspects. Then I looked at who is an IITian. And I realized that IITians are a huge spectrum. They come in all sorts of sizes and shapes, okay? Some are good, some are bad, some are analytical, some make movies and write books, some good engineers, others, prefer art. So there is nothing really common about an IITian as such. Well, and the last thing is some are smart and there are some real dumb IITians also, I realized. A lot of them, in fact, okay? So not all IITians are smart. So then I realized, what is that common thing which all IITians have? Then I realized the only thing common to all IITians is that on one particular day in their life, they cracked one specific exam, the IIT JEE. And that's it. If you crack it on that day, you are an IITian. If you don't crack it on that day, you're not an IITian. So the entire identity of an IITian hinges around one exam. So that's an IITian. So now let's look that how does one become a good leader? There are 2 ways. One is you are born a leader. You are born with leadership capabilities, Swami Vivekananda, Abraham Lincoln, whatnot. Okay, and you acquire leadership skills as you go along. Now let us come back. If you are a born leader, what are your chances of making it into that one day, one exam? Nothing spectacular. The IIT JEE is a good exam, no doubt, okay? But honestly, I feel that it is a way of selecting ballerinas by measuring the size of their biceps. Okay? So, on the basis of one exam on one particular day, we create 2 lakh IITians And if you'd like to believe that this one exam can pick out the great leaders from this huge mass, then you must be really naive indeed. So the entrance criteria for into IIT is nowhere near to be a good leader. In fact, if you are a good leader, if you go around, doing, a kind of, social service and things like that, things that Rhodes scholars do, it is highly unlikely that you will make it to the IIT JEE. Highly unlikely. For the IIT JEE, especially today's IIT JEE, you have to forget about everything, forget about the world, forget about the grand vision, forget about the society, forget about, helping others. Just cram, cram, and cram for one exam. And those are the kind of people who end up inside IIT. They are exam cracking machines. I'm not sure whether they form the material from which good leaders can emerge. Number 2. Okay, so the entrance criteria is all crap. Let's look at the next one. You acquire leadership by looking at people. Who are you inspired by? You get inspired. You look at leaders, look up to them. You have some living icons in front of you. And from them, you imbibe the ability to be a good leader. Now, all of you are from IIT. With a hand on your heart, tell me, how many of the IIT professors are icons of leadership? I doubt it. Even though I'm an IIT faculty myself, I know jolly well that, leadership and visionary leadership is something which does not exist within the IIT management mechanism. It's simply not there. So, neither were you selected on the basis of leadership skills, nor did you imbibe any great leadership ideas. So where do you think IIT will produce good leaders?
You're very close to your 5 minutes.
Okay. Now what happens is, so does it mean there are no IIT people from IIT coming out? Leaders? Of course not. Room full of you are here. No. This is a small percentage of the large number of people who've passed IIT, and the same percentage statistically you take from any population, you will find that population leaders. You take any sample of 2 lakh, 3 lakh people, you will find some people who are great at leadership, and they are the ones who you see in good positions, like some of them on the screen out on the table out here. So this leadership is basically a natural outcome of the natural leadership found in the Indian population, nothing to do with IIT at all. Coming back to my last point, okay, who are the leaders we see around us? Typically, we think of political leaders. These political leaders are very rich. And you know why? So even from that sense, no IITian can meet their definition of richness. That's why we are all very poor leaders, if at all we are leaders. Thank you very much.
Not that IITians don't make leaders, but those who make it are a very, very small sample of the large number of people who come out of IIT. Being an IITian means just cracking one exam one morning in some summer day, and you crack it by cramming. Arjun Malhotra, Kharagpur again, 1970. Legend has it he's one of the most distinguished alumni from KGP, chairman and CEO TechSpan Inc., United States of America, opposing the motion. IITians do make good leaders. Arjun, all yours.
Thank you, sir. I'll go back to what is a leader? I mean, I'll try and define it in a little more detail instead of just taking the 2 points that seem to be debatable one way or the other. So leaders are born and or made. And so, I guess if you're born a leader, you could be born anywhere, in any country, in any economic situation, in any educational situation. And if you're made, then obviously some part of you is born and some part of you is influenced through your formative years that makes you a leader. I would go a step further and look at McClelland. And McClelland said that people are basically motivated by three basic needs. And this is not the Maslow hierarchy of needs, but what McClelland said. And he said there's a power motivation, and power motivation creates political leaders. There's an affiliation motivation, and that creates missionaries and people of that kind who are leaders in that area. And then there's achievement motivation. And I like to believe that by cracking that one exam, as my worthy opponent said, we have people who are high on achievement motivation. Now let me look at, now that we've established we have highly achievement motivated people that get into IIT or qualify as IITians, let me look at the attributes of a leader. And I will go through a few of them. You've got to be intelligent. Well, that's true other than political leaders, but most other leaders have to be intelligent. I think you've got to be hardworking, and no one can disagree with that. Einstein said it very clearly, 99% perspiration, and if that applied to him, it applies to nearly everyone I know. You've got to be ambitious. You've got to want to get into an IIT, so you've got to be ambitious. And I think most IITians, the fact that they want to get into IIT and try for it, have that ambition. I think, especially in India, if you're looking at leaders, you have to have high frustration tolerance. And again, anyone who grows up in India has high frustration tolerance. In everything that you do, whether you have to fill a form and submit it or apply for a refund or whatever you do, your frustration tolerance is very high. I think our civic processes seem to make sure that you fit that criteria. I think the other thing that leaders have, that leadership needs, is ambiguity tolerance. And here I'll take the backing of a big social institutional process that happens in India. Most of us take the biggest decision of our lives with very little data. We depend on our team to tell us what to do, and by and large, we make it successful. And I'm talking about arranged marriages. Now, think about ambiguity for you. Once you've been able to survive an arranged marriage, nothing can be thrown at you that will impact you more from an ambiguity point of view. Finally, we look at decision making. Well, not finally, but another trait that I think leaders need is to be able to take decisions. I think most IITians are pretty good at that. You have to decide which subjects you want to focus on, which ones you want to let go or just cram, and which ones you want your funders clear. And most of us go through that because you can't have your funders clear in everything that you do in IIT. The next point I'd mention, and it's very important for a leader, is people skills. Now, how many times in IIT have you and your friends decided you want to go for a movie? Two people want to go to one movie, you want to go to some other movie, and you use your skills of persuasion to get them to the movie you want to see, and they're happy doing it. If you look back, that is people skills. That's what starts, that's the core from which leadership is built. And I notice that we do it all the time. And finally, I want to mention that leaders have to see the big picture. They have to see the big picture. And most of us in IIT are playing bridge, playing rummy, playing teen patti, doing, reading palms, doing, reading about theology, doing 20 things that are outside the course.
A minute to go.
That actually makes us leaders. I actually am pretty close to finishing. I just wanted to say that I'm going to try and anticipate some of the questions that my worthy opponents are going to talk about. One is that people have come and told me IITians are not aggressive enough. I sort of agree with that. We are not aggressive enough, but it's very much like WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So you're pretty frank, you're upfront, and when you try to be a leader, that's probably the best way to be. I think the second thing people tell me very often is that IITians don't have good presentation skills. While presentation skills are important to be a leader, I think most IITians more than make up in content what they don't have in form when they're doing presentations. And finally, people tell me that most of them are intellectual snobs. You don't tolerate fools too well. And my answer to that is yes. Unfortunately, that's the way we are. Thank you.
IITians are motivated, they're intelligent, hardworking, ambitious, they have people skills, and they look at the big picture. Doesn't matter if they're not aggressive enough at times. So that's the opposition's viewpoint as articulated by its leader. As you might have noticed, on two tables to my right and left, there is a good mixture of IIT alumni and present-day students. I'll now call upon Shojo De, who is now studying in Kharagpur and is a third-year student. He'll speak for the motion.